My name is Matt Goff. I am the founder of ARC Agency. In a former life, I was the group chief exec of Adam and Eve DDB. I am joined by the magnificent Niek de Rooij, whose name I will have just said wrong, which I apologize for. And I'm just going to start by saying I really love the case study that he is about to take you through. A lot of people will be incredibly jealous of the brilliance of this idea and the way it has been brought to life. A lot of people sit on panels and talk about the philosophy of doing this kind of thing, or that they'd like to be able to think like this. This is a guy who has run a team who have put an amazing idea out into the world for a well-established, incredibly long-standing, potentially, if it's okay for me to say it, a little bit of a dusty brand. And they are reinventing this for a new audience in new channels. I absolutely love it. I'm so excited that you have stuck around before you go and get your lunch to hear a little bit about it. I'm going to hand over to Niek, who is going to introduce himself and then take us through the case study. And then we will ask some questions, have a discussion, throw it open to the floor, and then eat some lunch, if that sounds okay with everybody. Fabulous. Niek.
Well, thank you, Matt. That's raising expectations, isn't it? So between now and lunch, let's talk about food. No, I can just do the clicking. Yeah, no, that's okay. So, as Matt just said, the Knorr brand, and he pronounced that with a K, which is already a great win. The Knorr brand may be a little bit of a heritage brand, but actually a heritage to such an extent. It has been around since 1838, and it was established and founded by Karl-Heinrich Knorr, whose founder and signature is still the brand mark that we use today. And of course, it is quite a large brand. It is actually, and you might not know this, the 5th most chosen FMCG brand in the world. There's 600 bouillon cubes sold every single minute. And obviously that means we have a stake in cooking. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, cooking. And I would love to start with a question. And that question is, does cooking make you more attractive? So, can I see a show of hands? Does a partner who cooks, is that more attractive? My job is done? That's all I wanted to hear, right? And why is this a relevant question? Well, if you think about cooking, cooking is under pressure. Right? It's not that people are actually en masse around the world cooking less. No. But what we see is that they're cooking in less time. Cooking is literally under pressure. People take less time to do it. And there's a whole new generation growing up who is actually starting cooking later and at the same time is also cooking in less time and needs these convenient solutions to get there. Add to this the rise of takeaway, the rise of food delivery worldwide. And you can see that we at Knorr cannot stand this problem, right? We have to act. It is not just an existential thing for us, but for us it means people are denying themselves the pleasure of cooking. And how amazing is it to be able to cook for others, and to actually have that satisfaction of creating something that others will rave about. So here is a point in culture where we said we draw the line, we need to do something. And of course, Knorr, as you just mentioned, Matt, is maybe a little bit of a dusty brand, right? And this is all part of our brand transformation that we've been leading for over the last 3-4 years. And in all of this, of course, we have changed our models of marketing to connect with a new generation of cooks that is out there. And how do we do that? And how have we changed this paradigm? Because if there is one thing that we want to do is, of course, it is to remain faithful about this mission to get more people to cook at home. So really, how do you motivate a generation to cook? First and foremost, it is about finding relevance in their lives, right? Really connecting with what it is that they are actually passionate about. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of cooking content out there. There's a lot of cooking content on TikTok and Instagram, and probably you all have a secret folder somewhere on Pinterest with all of those recipes you ever wanted to cook, but you didn't yet, right? And that is exactly what is happening. Cooking is starting to become a little bit more of an entertainment, but not everybody is really participating in it. But if you then look a little bit further, there's a lot more content that people are talking about online. So what we did is we've listened to 20 million conversations across 5 different markets to really find what are cultural heat zones, what are territories that we could be relevant in with cooking, other than cooking itself. And out of those conversations that we've carefully analyzed, put together, we found that there were a couple of sweet spots. And one of those areas is actually the whole area of romance. And now we're getting into this because people talk a lot about love, right? About finding love, about losing love, about just coming out of a divorce, or even worse, coming out of a situationship. Or there's so many things that people talk about when it comes to romance. It is a very interesting topic, and almost automatically you can start seeing through from the conversations and the data that food is an adjacent category. They also talk about romance in the context of food. So we thought there's something here. To give you a couple of things that people talk about, right? So one of the key things that is happening right now is that modern dating is a minefield. I'm not sure if some of you heard about red flags and green flags, or maybe some of you are actively dating at the moment, but everything is a red flag nowadays, right? Whether you are a Scorpio or even apologizing. Apologizing is a red flag as well. So you're just not sure what is a red flag or a green flag anymore. But there are other things going on in this world of romance. Dating apps. Dating apps. You can't live with them, you can't live without them, right? They are the bane of the dater's existence. And people are just fed up. They're tired with all of these dating apps. And they rave about that online as well. But there's other things. Once you're in a relationship, we also see that people are talking about getting the spark going again. You know, when this sort of pattern sets in and this rut in daily romance starts to set in, how do you actually bring it back, right? Now, all of these things are talked about. So we thought, you know, that's interesting. How can we actually bring this back to our topic, which is cooking? And how can we connect with the culture that people love and talk about and the theme that we want to own and drive, which is home cooking? And this is what we matched up with, because I just spoke to you a little bit about red flags and green flags, but we actually found this stat that 75 of Zillennials agree that cooking is the ultimate green flag. It is the one thing we can all agree on that is a green flag. And we've just started this talk by having a look at the Knorr logo. And of course, it is no coincidence that our logo is a green flag. So let me take you through some of the work that we did to connect culture to home cooking. But of course, I didn't want to leave that without adding some real value to your dating life. So here are a couple of tips from Knorr. We found that actually, if you want to secure that second date, you've got a 90% chance of securing it by offering to cook at that second date. Also, you know, you couldn't be bothered to learn to cook. You lie about this. Actually, it turns out that 20% of people actually exaggerate their cooking skills in a dating context. Some actually pass their friends' cooking on for theirs. And of course, if you want to avoid the ick, make sure to bring the flavor, right? Bland food is a real red flag. So if you've cooked for someone, just make sure that it has flavor. And by the way, use Knorr. Of course, there's a little bit more, but I'm also conscious of time. So maybe we should just engage in... We're good? Okay, well, we also do want to have a little bit of a chat. But I think let me share you one more thing, because this is not just a one-day thing, right? We zoom into this space and we find that this space is actually offering us a lot of opportunity. So you can see the previous campaign. It went live in 23 markets. So one idea, but all executed in different localized ways, all laddering up to one big moment in time, right? But at the same time, it also offers up uniquely local opportunities as well. So for instance, we use this space and the conversations around this for a campaign here in the UK as well around Valentine's. So let me share this with you as a parting gift. So there you have it. Cooking does make you more attractive, and we should all be doing more of it. So hopefully gave you a little bit of a flavor of how we're actually getting Knorr out of the cupboard into pop culture and really start recruiting a new generation of cooks to actively engaging in culture and reinventing our marketing model. So thank you.
Not very dusty anymore. I think it's one of the best sort of mic drop case studies I've ever seen. A big, old, well-established brand connecting in such a brilliant way with a new audience and using that channel in a way that is relevant to people and offers reward to them. It's fantastic. Congratulations. First question really is, ideas like this, sometimes they come fully formed and you're like, fabulous, great, go and do that. I'll get on with something else. But I suspect that probably wasn't the case. How did you come across this idea? Where did it start? And how did it evolve along the way from when you first saw it to how you got it out into the market?
Yeah, indeed. It doesn't start like a fully fledged idea. Obviously, it's through the listening. You come to like a social topic like red flags, green flags. It really is a thing. You start to pick up there's already some cooking content going on against this. So this is the moment where your radar needs to switch on and you think like, oh, okay, there's something into this. But of course, then talking about this, with the agency team, you start to realize, actually, we are a green flag, aren't we? This is fantastic. We need to do something with it. But I think as you go through the next stages, that's really where you make it or break it, right? So you could just go and just do a little bit of creator content and think like, okay, that's it. Or you can think like, let's make this really big and let's make it a little bit more daring. Let's go out into many, many markets with this. Let's partner with someone who actually knows dating, like Tinder, which was a little bit of a contentious topic in some of the markets that we work with, right? The Knorr brand, Tinder, really? Yes, we should, because that's where the reappraisal comes from. And then it is all about, okay, and this is, I think, a very important one. Shall we talk about this? Or are we going to do something? So what is it that we're actually going to bring? What is this value exchange that we bring online? And clearly, this is about cooking tips. It is about helping people with the recipes. So we've used some of these recipes and creators to cook a special date night recipes that are sure to succeed. But it also means that we started working rather than with normal our food creators that we usually work with dating influencers. So we're starting to tap into whole new networks that normally we wouldn't work with, to tap into all of these new audiences. So it's a long answer to, it's a journey. You do this together and you make it as big as you could possibly get.
And how long was it from originally seeing something where you thought, oh, there's something in there, to a campaign going live?
Well, I think, and I'm just looking at Alan here from the IPG team, who has actually been driving this entire campaign. I think it took us like 6 months, Alan, from start to finish. Yeah.
Amazing. So that's pretty fast work. So one of the things I think is so exciting about this is that this is coming from an organization that for a long time had a certain playbook, a certain way of building brands, a certain way of spending its media, then has reorganized itself and spoken a lot about how it's going to change the way that it connects with the audience. But this is an example of it actually really happening. What were the kinds of changes in the internal teams? There's obviously a lot of muscle memory about how you build brands within an organization like Unilever. This is a new playbook. How much change and involvement has there had to be internally in order to get teams operating in this new way?
The change is not to be underestimated, right? If you come from a push model of marketing, let's face it, Unilever wrote some of the playbooks around this from many years ago already. It is a massive shift, but I'm actually surprised with how fast all of that is going, because not only do people see it works, but at the same time, there is a lot more energy coming from tapping into cultural conversations that people in their only daily lives are also interested in. And I think the real switch is in that word, to be interesting again, right? And really, it's this realization that you see a diminishing return in the stories that you push out, which not necessarily are always the most interesting one, to actually getting a little bit of that bottom-up vibe. So what we're seeing is the teams are actually quite happy to embrace it, but we're all finding our way in this one, right? We all need to mix the models right, because we can't switch this thing on and off overnight. But where you really get into the nitty-gritty of it is, of course, also how do you then actually distribute your media spend? When do you dare to move your weight from one leg to the other? And that happens more in some markets than it does in others, right? But right now, I think for us, the main objective is to just get into this world as fast as we can. And what I'm now seeing is that the enthusiasm is taking over. And this is now almost an unstoppable force amongst our teams.
I think that's so brilliant. What a great thought, to be interesting again. To go out to what other people might be interested in, not to go out and broadcast what is in the middle of your, I'll say brand onion because it makes sense in this particular case. I think that's so good. Now, what advice would you have for people in the room who might be responsible for or running a brand that wants to go out and connect with an audience in this way? What advice have you learned to kind of say, look, there is an audience out there for you. You wouldn't have thought that dating or romance was yours. What advice is there for people to go and say, that's your audience, go and find them?
I think an advice would be to really understand what your platform is. Because if you understand what your platform is, you can still guarantee a degree of consistency that a brand needs. And I think this is where we've learned a lot, right? So over the last years, we've been eager to get into culture in so many different places and spaces that it became a little bit disparate, right? So you started to lose a little bit, like, really, should we be playing there just because we can? And I feel that now listening and just zoning in a little bit more on cultural territories and the audiences that sit beneath those, we're just boxing it in a little bit better. And then, of course, we are about home cooking. So there is always this thing about marrying what people think about in culture to home cooking in a credible way. If we feel that that is a force fit, we don't do it, right? And often it is when you already start to see some conversations out there where naturally the two converge. And I think that is a very important one. So a platform and understanding what the environment is that you want to be consistent in, because culture is really, really large. So you need to pick your particular spot in it.
So good. I just love a brand turning up with purpose and being relevant and interesting. Congratulations. Also delighted. I mean, it won't be popular in this part of London, I suspect, but to hear that skinny jeans are a red flag, I think is great news. But I am horrified by the notion that Valentine's has become a season and not a day. That's the application of pressure I could live without. Shall we open up to questions from the floor? I'm not sure how we're doing time-wise.
Hi, that's great. By the way, great case study. I'm Joe, by the way. A quick question. I mean, you touched upon it already, but Knorr is a very traditional brand, and you took a risk with this campaign. I have a question. So, how did you make sure that, to make sure that you were consistent and you were relevant and you weren't scaring away your core customers? And also, did you update your playbook? This is also something that is going to be updating your tone of voice in general, and as well how you keep your essence, how you become culturally relevant while maintaining your brand essence.
That is a great question. And obviously it was on the minds of our teams all along in this journey. So I think you've just said it. It's very important to really be clear about the personality of the brand. And we just codified that in a number of personality traits that flow through everything. But at the same time, we wondered, okay, but if we take these personality traits and we apply them into a social world right now, what would they sound like, right? So there is a consistency, but there is a gradual shift as well in this. And I think that is very important. But some of the key things we will always be faithful to, right? We are motivating. We never talk you down, right? We are trying to lift you up. We are trying to show up, never empty-handed, but with an advice or something that you can actually do. We don't just leave you there. And obviously, we tap into a space which is very close to a space that is already known for cooking, which is love. But yeah, it used to be in the past. Let's face it, lots of happy families and bite and smile wallpaper advertising, right? We're just moving it on. So the protagonists are now actually people who have a life themselves. It is more the other side of relationships that we go into. So every single touch point is still there. It's just reinvented. And of course, lastly, there is a definite need to keep on recruiting, right? Because otherwise we grow old with the audiences who still use us. But what people cook is changing, and what people talk about is changing. So we still cater to our, if you would say, mass audiences, but we're layering on top this need to recruit a new audience of cooks. And those two tiers can work together.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Sandra. I love how you've taken the campaign and then even brought it up to the product and going into summers and online, and I thought that was really great. Did you also leverage the campaign into your normal retailer, so whether it's online or in store, and what's next as well?
Well, this campaign we wanted to leverage with a key retailer here in the UK. So there were some limited editions involved there as well. I think we could have made this bigger had we had more time. And to be honest, that is a big thing that we're seeing in these types of campaigns, which is it's always this sort of two-speed track you're on. Because when something happens in social, you want to respond to it, you want to be fast. But hey, you know, there's also production timeline, trade timelines, etc. So we're getting better and better at thinking ahead about something that we can be a little bit more planned social as well, where we can integrate this a little bit more, right? So if you look at the Green Flag campaign as well, that campaign could have done better on an in-store level as well. So we're really learning these things as we go. But it is that two-speed track. But yeah, what is next? I would just say wait and see.
Fabulous. I think I've made my point of view pretty clear on the case study, but I just think it's fabulous and so great to see people, a big brand, thinking engagement first, audience first, and then doing something fabulous off the back of it. So congratulations to you and the team on a fantastic case study.
Thank you.
Thank you, Niek.
There he is.